Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the EzeeLinux show. This is version 18.21, recorded in the wee small hours of the morning, May the 1st, 2018. I believe it is a Tuesday morning. Of course, by the time you see that, it won't be any of that, but I'm just trying to get myself situated. I'm Joe Collins, and in this video, I want to go through an email that I received, and just some wonderful points in here, and just sort of ramble on about it. So those of you who like to just listen, you don't have to watch the screen because there's not going to be much on it. This is just me talking pretty much in this video. I just woke up and checked my email in the middle of the night, and this email landed in my box, and I read through it, and I thought, boy, pretty well thought out stuff here. Brings up a lot of good points. It's from Kaler, and he addresses me quite formally. He calls me Mr. Collins, and I'm looking around for my dad, and he's not here. And I want to kind of go through here and read the email and then go back through it and just give you my thoughts on it. I think that's the best way to handle this. Kaler writes, I was at work today talking about Linux, and a fellow tech said he would never go near it. I asked why, and he said, based on his experience, Linux users were elitist, flame war-loving nerds and internet trolls, and using Linux as a main system was more trouble than it was worth. I began looking at comments and posts from Linux users and some podcasts, not yours, and I admit he has a point. Even I got disgusted, and I have been involved with Linux in some way or another for a long while. I wanted to thank you so much for not becoming that, and for giving the universe of Linux someone sane to look to for help, not to mention thanking you for a first-class radio show on YouTube. Well, radio show on YouTube, I never thought of it that way, but okay. However, I am also writing to ask you to please do a video addressing mainly this issue, the image the Linux community gives off to the outside world. Most in the community are mad that open source hasn't done away with proprietary. I don't know a tactful way to tell them that they are the cause for it. Maybe there isn't one. I don't know. All these issues I know you brought up before in your excellent video entitled My Frustration with Linux Prognostication, an open letter to the Linux community. You summed it up very well there. But from different techs I have talked to at work and other places, I get the feeling that the image the Linux community has to the outside world is much worse than any Linux user truly believes. When we join this community, we do get rather cut off from the world of Windows or Mac, which we left behind. We really need to look inward. We really tend to look inward, rather. I just think this issue needs to be addressed again, or more in depth, or something like that. Anyway, thank you for your time, and it's signed Kaler. That's an excellent, excellent, excellent email, and there is so much in here that I would like to comment on. And I'm going to do it in a rather haphazard way, because I could probably sit down and come up with an hour-long presentation, and I could have cards and stuff to show on the screen. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk about it for a little while. And I may contradict something that I said in the past, because to tell you the truth, this is something that I have put a lot of thought into, been putting a lot of thought into. And so I'm going to tell you where my head's at on it. It's just really that simple. I don't claim to be an expert other than the fact that I do move through this community. So the first thing that I want to address today is the first part here where he says he was talking to a tech, and the tech said, based on his experience, keep that phrase in mind, Linux users were elitist, flame war-loving nerds and internet trolls, and using Linux as a main system was more trouble than it was worth. Well, okay, anybody who would say that Linux was more trouble than it was worth and they're comparing it to Windows is speaking from rank ignorance and should be ignored. Doesn't matter what they say after they say something like that. I was a Windows fanboy for a long time. I worked in Windows shops, and I got the certificates. that I needed to be able to say, look, I'm an expert on using this system. And I have been using Linux for the last 10 years in some capacity or another, and I can tell you from my experience that Linux is a much easier system to work with. It is more reliable. It's easier to maintain. The trick is that it's not Windows. So when you have somebody who says that, they are coming from a perspective of, you know, I took a long time to learn how to function within this Windows ecosystem, and now you come along and you're showing me this thing called Linux, and you say it's great, and when I look at it, all I see is that I'm going to have to learn something, and that scares me. That is really what these people think. And they are offended at the fact that they have spent 10 or 20 years learning how to use this particular ecosystem, and then somebody comes along and says, well, here's an alternative, but you're going to have to learn it. That scares the bejeebies out of them. And their response to it is to piss all over it. That's what that is. And that's not just in the enterprise world, it's also in just the regular desktop home users. You have these folks who consider themselves to be Windows power users, and they expect to sit down in front of a Linux system and they want it to be what they're used to. And when it's not, they get very frustrated. It scares them, and their response is to just say, well, Linux sucks anyway, and anybody who uses Linux is an elitist nerd. It's really easy to just throw stones at something that challenges you. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. Now, as far as the comments and the posts from Linux users and some podcasts, not yours, he has a point. I agree. I think that there is a lot of vitriol that is posted on the internet. There is a lot of chest beating. There is a lot of tribal warfare that is carried out verbally. And the truth of the matter is that to somebody who is using Linux every day and finding it to be useful to them and getting their work done with it, it really doesn't matter what any of these people say. It doesn't matter what the Windows techs at work say about Linux being run by elitists and nerds, and it really doesn't matter what the elitists and the nerds say about everybody else. Does it work for you? That's all that matters. If you're enjoying using it, that's great. And those are the people that I have desperately tried to concentrate on talking to through the EzeeLinux community. I try really hard not to get caught up in the drama. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not a human being, and every now and again I do that. And I can't help that. I mean, that's just normal. And I try and catch myself when I do that. I mean, there's a lot of issues and subjects that go by that I go, well, I'm just not going to comment on that at all, because it doesn't really have anything to do with what's really going on in the community. So let's move on to the next paragraph. He said he wanted to thank me for not becoming that. Well, I've tried really hard. I'm not perfect. I know that I have said things that may be considered inflammatory. And you know, there's a lot of folks out here who are trying to get attention. And I say that with love in my heart. It's just, we're all, anybody who's posting content to YouTube or internet or anywhere, whatever, we all kind of tend to try and come up with titles that are eye-catching. I mean, that's just part of the deal. And sometimes people carry it a little too far, and they grab onto a point that really isn't the big deal. They make a mountain out of a molehill to have something to talk about, and people get caught up in that. And when you take a step back from it, you realize that whatever little controversy it is a tempest in a teacup, and in the long run it doesn't affect anybody. And people do that because they're just trying to get attention. And there are people out here right now who are trying to make a living off of doing this, and you have my profoundest sympathies. And that is not, I'm not going to say that in a negative way. I don't think that you're crazy for wanting to do that. I applaud you for going your own way. And like I said, there's a lot of things that push people to say what they say, and Some of it is meant tongue-in-cheek, and then the tongue-in-cheek stuff gets taken seriously, and somebody gets very offended, and this is what starts this. Most in the community are mad open source hasn't done away with proprietary. I don't know whether that's true or not. And it's not saying that it's their fault for being unpleasant about it is the cause for it. Well, that's really, no, that's stretching it. What will make open source, and what is making open source the go-to technology for the future has nothing to do with the morality of proprietary software versus open source software, although I agree that open source is a better way to go because many eyes look at the code and we all know what's going on and nothing's being hidden from us, and we can take that and do with it as we will, and all that kind of stuff. I understand all that. But the thing is that what's really going to push open source into the mainstream is economics. Plain and simple. Corporations look at one thing and one thing only. They look at numbers, money. And if you go to a corporation and you can present them with a more cost-effective way to get things done, they're not going to give a damn whether it is proprietary software that they buy from an exclusive vendor or whether it's open source. They're going to look at it and say, is it cheaper? We'll do it. However, there is also the added thing in there that says, how reliable is this, and are we putting ourselves at risk by using this technology? And up to now, what has kept a lot of corporate entities from going whole hog open source is simply this fear that if they don't give a lot of money to an entity such as Microsoft or even Red Hat, that they are going to run into, if everything breaks, they're not going to have any support. And I think that is sort of kind of backing off a little bit now, because people are realizing that there are many, many, many people out here who know how to take something like Ubuntu or CentOS and install it and make that work reliably, and they don't need to worry about having outside techs come in. They can hire people that can do that themselves, and it's still less expensive than having to license a whole bunch of different machines. And it's just taking a while for that particular attitude to kind of go away. You have the old school Microsoft brainwashed techs who are running a lot of shops and businesses, and these guys, they do not want to back away from what they know, even though those of us who have been using Linux for quite some time and are quite familiar with the system, we can look from our side and we can see it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're deluding yourself. Believe me, I'd much rather have to set up 5 Linux systems than I would have to set up 5 Windows systems any day of the week. Because I know with Linux that I can just go bam, 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 they'll be done, up and running, whereas with Windows, So it's all a matter of perspective, and it's a matter of what you know. And finally, the last paragraph here, all these issues I know were brought up before in your excellent video titled My Frustration with Linux Prognostication, an open letter to the Linux community. I did that like last year, and quite honestly, I don't remember what on earth made me do it, and I don't even remember what I said. They said I summed it up very well there, so, well, thank you very much for that. I guess maybe the thing to say here is that it really doesn't matter what people say. It makes no difference. That's what I have come to realize probably since My Frustration with Linux Prognostication video was posted. I don't remember what I said in it, to tell you the truth. But it doesn't matter. There is, yes, Linux does have the elitists, the nerds, the trolls, the guys who live in the basement and don't have any lives, and can't interact socially with the rest of the world. Of course, that's going to be part of any technical community. Those are the engineers. It's just kind of the way it is. But there is also this huge segment of users that are coming along that are just using Linux to get things done every day. And they are discovering that with easy-to-use Linux distributions like Linux Mint and Ubuntu Mate, and even things like Elementary OS or Manjaro or something like that, that they can sit down and get work done at their computer, and they don't care about any of the drama that goes on. They don't care about what the old Windows techs say about Linux nerds and what Linux nerds say about old Windows techs. It makes no difference to them at all. They just sit down and get things done. Those are the people that I'm trying to talk to. Those are the people that I want to talk to. So whatever I said with my frustration with Linux prognostication or whatever, I mean, I think I've actually evolved beyond that a little bit more. I have to go back and look at that and see what I said myself, to tell you the truth. I probably should have done it before I did this, but it doesn't matter because who cares, right? It's something I said a year and a half ago. Let's see. When we join this community, we do get rather cut off from the world of Windows or Mac, which we left behind. Yes, we do. And it's a good thing because we find a whole new reality that doesn't have to do with every time we want to do something with our computer, we have to pull out our wallet. And that's beautiful. And it goes back to what I said earlier. What will push open source technology along is economics. And the more people that use it, the better. So I guess maybe, there's so much about this that I could get off into and talk about, but I think the main thing that I wanted to put out there was the fact that, I watch the podcasts and I listen to a lot of things that people say, but the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter. What matters is, can you get the kind of information you need to get whatever it is you're trying to do done? That's important. Documentation. Not whether somebody thinks one desktop is better than another. I mean, those sorts of things. That's human. If you give people a choice and then you put 100 people in the room, they'll stand there and debate it all day. They'll group off. That's the way people are. And in the Linux community, there are choices galore. So you're going to have camps within that community. People who really love XFCE, people who really love this distribution over another, XFCE desktop over the GNOME desktop over whatever. You're going to have these camps of people. That's normal. And in the Linux world, everything is done in the open. That's part of open source. Development is done in the open. Criticism is done in the open. It's all open. Do you think that in a company like Microsoft or Apple, that in the back rooms there, that there's not these discussions going on about what is the best way to go, and that there's not frictions between certain departments or certain people within the same department, and these inter-office emails and discussions are happening just like they are in the Linux world? The difference is we don't see it, because that's proprietary. It's considered to be intellectual property. Even the discussion about whatever it is that they're working on is considered to be intellectual property, and that doesn't get out of the company. So we don't see that. Linux is developed in the open. It's, most of it is done with mailing lists, which are publicly accessible, and forums, and this is how it's done. And some of it's not pretty. And there are people in the Linux community that really, really get on my nerves. I'm not going to mention names because that just starts a flame war, but there are people who make podcasts that I completely, totally disagree with, that are just absolutely barking up the wrong tree, and I want to hit them. But I'm not going to go out there and say that, because it doesn't have anything to do with the users who come to me and say, I'm really sick of working with Mac or Windows and I want to learn about Linux. Boom. I mean, I'm wasting my time and wasting yours talking about that kind of stuff. if that's what we're really hearing all about. People are just looking for something that is a viable alternative. They're looking for refuge from the storm that the viruses and ransomware and forced updates and vendor lock-in of proprietary systems has pushed on them. And for these people, it really doesn't matter what anybody thinks. So don't worry about it. And as far as Kaler, as far as you're concerned, you're not going. I don't know what position you have at work, but unless you are in a management position, you're not going to be able to get them to use Linux until it becomes painfully obvious to them that economically they're going to have to go that direction. So just wait for the tide to turn in your direction, and when you see an opening, you can say, hey, I've been using Linux for a really long time. And when that changes, you're going to be the one who says, oh, I already use Linux at home. I understand how the system works. While the tech who was telling you that it was more trouble than it was worth, and it was a bunch of elitists in the community, what happens if it comes down at your work all of a sudden that, hey, we're going to start using Linux desktops and Linux servers? Who is the one that's going to be in the dark? Who is the one that's going to be worried about their job? Is it going to be you? Or is it going to be the guy who pisses all over Linux? Think about that for a minute. Think about that. I mean, honestly, that's what I think the deal is. I think that a lot of people who are currently bashing Linux and trashing Linux and saying how horrible the community is, they're scared of Linux. Because if Linux takes off, they're going to have to deal with it, or they're going to have to figure out something else to do that isn't tech related. So it's all a matter of perspective. There's a lot of psychology that goes into this. Great deal. From all points of view. From people like me who create content to people who troll forums. Look at their perspective. Try and figure out what their motives are, and then things make a lot of sense. And on that note, I am going to wrap this up. Thank you for watching, and thank you very much for your very nice feedback, Kaler. I really do appreciate it. And you guys are awesome. We're getting to a place, we're very, very close to 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. That is awesome. So thank you very much. As always, your feedback is welcome. Please be sure to give EzeeLinux a like on Facebook. Thanks for doing that. Also, check out EzeeLinux on the web. That's EzeeLinux.com. And that's getting ready to have a big revamp coming up here very soon. We're going to do some interesting things there, I think. And also check out freedompenguin.com for more about Linux from contributors such as myself. There's always something fun to look at freedompenguin.com. And thank you once again for watching the video. We'll do it again soon.